Welcome to Westphalia.
Machines! The Ruhrgebiet, Germany's greatest region. Once you've taken in just how stunning the nature and the architecture are, then you'll almost certainly find yourself wondering, are there any British people here? The answer, of course, is yes. We get everywhere you don't want us to. But the more interesting question is how long have we been here and what nefarious activities have we been engaging in? You might think that we came with the end of the Second World War and left as the Cold War era ended. But actually there have been groups of Brits in Westphalia since long before that. And we played an important role in the shaping of the Ruhr area as it is today. I'm Jasmine Sainsbury, a Brit who lives in the Ruhrgebiet, and today I'm going to take you on a journey to the Industrial Revolution to find out just what we were up to in Westphalia back then. So, we've already talked about machines and the iron needed to make those machines. But what was it that powered the machines? Indeed, it was coal. And if you thought it was bad enough that we Brits were on the surface, then you'll be shocked to find out that we were also below it. Today, we're taking a trip unter to find out about the Brits who were working beneath our feet. In the mid-19th century, numerous British, Belgian, and Dutch capitalists put money into coal mining along the Rhine and also the Ruhr. Now, you might be wondering, why did people come all the way from abroad to the Ruhr area, in order to start coal mines? The answer, of course, as with many things, is money. Germany at this time was not exactly in its rich era. All the easy-to-reach coal had already been exploited, and they now needed to dig much deeper down to get to where the rest of it was. This required both some serious know-how and some serious money. So let me introduce you to William Thomas Mulvaney, perhaps the most famous of these foreign capitalists. Mulvaney was from Dublin, and yes, I know what you're thinking. That's not Great Britain. It's complicated. Ireland at the time was under British rule, and Mulvaney considered himself to be British, even if today we would understand him as Irish. We have uncontested Brits coming later, though. Mulvaney worked his way up through the Irish civil service as an engineer to eventually become Commissioner of Public Works. But unfortunately found himself the political scapegoat for the cost of his relief efforts in the Irish famine, and was sent into an early retirement in 1854 at age 46. That same year, Mulvaney was approached and asked to join a business venture by fellow Irishman Michael Corr. Corr had some land near Gelsenkirchen, where he wanted to start coal mining, and was looking for investors and a director. Mulvaney's name was suggested, and he agreed to go and take a look. Upon arrival in the Ruhrgebiet, he was impressed. When I visited the head mining office, I examined a geological map beneath the soil. I saw how inadequate were your railways and canals in those days, and I appreciated what a heavy burden your existing transport facilities had to bear. I said, these people do not know their own wealth. As you go north from the Ruhr River, the coal gets deeper underground. This meant that whilst lots of the coal in the south of the region had already been exploited, in this region further north, there was still a lot of untapped coal. Mulvaney decided it sounded like a good plan and took up the job as director, while Corr found a selection of Irish investors. In 1855, Mulvaney upped sticks and moved to Düsseldorf. See, no one from abroad would ever choose to move to the Ruhr area. However, in a very patriotic act, Mulvaney's first coal mine was opened in Gelsenkirchen on St. Patrick's Day, 1856, and named Hibernia. As he wasn't quite sure he'd made it clear enough where he came from, the following year he opened a second colliery in Herne, named Shamrock. Mulvaney did not come alone. He brought with him a team of both British and Irish miners, the largest group of which came from the region around Durham and Newcastle. Not only did he bring Brits, he also brought with him English mining technology, which at the time was considerably more advanced. The first challenge was getting down to where the coal was, below the waterline. The technology was relatively new to the Ruhr area, with the first deep mining happening in 1837. In England, they already had considerably more experience, and so Mulvaney hired experienced sinker 63-year-old William Coulson from near Newcastle in northern England. He was not an engineer in the word's today's meaning. He has never used a drawing pencil. One small piece of chalk in his pocket and the first best board was enough to show his foreman and workers his intentions. All what he knew from practice. When sinking a shaft that deep, the major problem was water, lest the shaft collapse in on itself or flood. The usual method in the Ruhr area at the time involved lining the shaft with bricks, but Coulson used a shiny new method, tubbing. Shiny because instead of bricks, he used segments made of iron, which fitted together to line the shaft. This was then combined with a system of pumps, steam engines, and various machines imported from England to keep the water at bay. It was a big success, and they were able to sink the first shaft at Hibernia to 112 meters without too much problem. Hibernia looked very much like an English mine, with its wooden pitheads and English mining technology. It soon reached a production level of almost double that of the other established collieries in the area. The German authorities saw its success and soon began to associate it with Mulvaney. In 1860, he was invited to accompany a Prussian coal commission to the UK to study the coal mining industry there. An interesting exchange of technology and knowledge. If only there was a historian of industry in the Ruhrgebiet here, I could ask about that. Hola, Schmidt-Gutsch! What a coincidence! I could swear you've been following me. Tell me about the contribution the British made to the technological exchange in coal mining.
Die Briten haben hier Mitte des 19. Jahrhunderts neue Technik mitgebracht, eine neue Arbeitsorganisation, viel effektiver gearbeitet und das hat den deutschen Bergbau nachhaltig geprägt.
Presumably this wasn't just a one-directional exchange. Was there anything that the Brits learned from the Germans?
Ja, natürlich. Die Entwicklung ging im ganzen 19. Jahrhundert weiter und irgendwann wurde die deutsche Industrie auch eine echte Konkurrenz. Also wenn ich an Elektrotechnik zum Beispiel denke oder an Sicherheitsfragen, da hat man in einem regen Austausch gestanden.
Herne and Gelsenkirchen, where Mulvaney's mines were located, were at the time small agricultural villages, so he had to sort out somewhere for his workers to live. The first houses were built next to the railway, based on workers' houses in Portlaw, Ireland. Their curved roofs looked unusual to the Germans, but similar to a line of train carriages, earning them the nickname D-Zug. Mulvaney also sorted out an English-speaking school for the children of the workers, and even an Anglican church. The church, in fact, still exists to this day, though in a new building because it got bombed in the Second World War, and it's best not to ask who by. Mulvaney's mining communities lived in relative isolation, as his workers did not generally speak much German. And Mulvaney was no exception. He may have been the chair of one of the biggest German industrial pressure groups, but he had to stick to written communication for his political ideas. Specifically, some 40 memorandums. The Anglo-Irish miners and their success were seen as somewhat mysterious by the locals. One reporter described Coulson's sinkers as such. Many of them stand out by their colossal body dimensions and their enormous appetite too. However, they are untiring workers. Irish economist Cliff Leslie described them as appearing, by comparison to the Germans, heroic and majestic. After all the shafts were sunk, the sinkers went home. But most of the engineers and foremen stayed, many of them settling permanently. George Laverick, born in County Durham, moved over in 1855 to work as a pumping engineer, where he continued to work until his retirement in 1911. There were, however, an ever-increasing number of Germans hired to work in Mulvaney's mines. The coal mines were in large part a great success, and Mulvaney was successful in his aim of turning Germany from a country which imported coal into one which exported it. The Zeche Hibernia was still in operation until its reserves ran out in 1925, and Shamrock until 1967. And Gelsenkirchen grew in this time from a village of 600 people into a city. So that's the story of the... Hey, Olaf!
Hi, Jasmine.
Just the person I need. I was just about to wrap the series up, but maybe you can best answer this question. There must have been a significant cultural exchange between the Brits and the Germans. How much of that remains today?
Es ist tatsächlich so, dass einige Familien hier im Ruhrgebiet geblieben sind, zum Beispiel die Lavericks. Und natürlich findet man in den unterschiedlichen Orten die alten Zechen, zumindest in Straßennamen. Also in Gelsenkirchen die Zeche Hibernia, in Herne die Zeche Shamrock und in Castorf die Zeche Erin. Und gerade um die Zeche Erin gibt es tatsächlich noch viel mehr Spuren, nämlich das Herrenhaus, in dem Mulvaney gelebt hat. Und es gibt da auch eine Pferderennbahn, wo er früher seinem persönlichen Hobby gefrönt hat. Wenn man die Augen aufmacht, findet man also noch ganz viele Spuren der Briten hier in der Westfalen.
Thank you for your help. Glück auf!
Glück auf!
Over the last 3 episodes, we have taken a look at the role played by the Brits in the industrialisation of Germany, in machine building, in ironworking, and in coal mining. Whilst the industrialisation of many industries would likely have been achieved without the help of migrant workers, they were able to massively speed the process up. And that brings me back to the question I posed at the beginning of this series. How did the Industrial Revolution manage to make its way over from the UK to Germany? The answer is largely by boat and by train.